Hi folks, Paul Wilson here, back again with Hooked on Diesel podcast. I have with me today Evan Berry. Evan, how are you?
I'm awesome. How are you?
I'm doing good. Evan, you work over here at DHD in the engine building program.
Yep.
Can you talk to us a little bit about your experience with building engines?
So, pretty much my experience started 6 years ago. I actually went to college for welding. Tony brought me aboard. Started as a mechanic. Really wasn't a fan of the mechanic work. Kind of got into the engines, and I've been here ever since.
Okay, so you actually came in just doing like regular maintenance mechanic work.
Yep.
What drew you into being a mechanic?
So pretty much just working with my father growing up. We were always out in the shed. He did pretty much like restoring old tractors, stuff like that. So I was constantly out in the shed helping him from the time I was little and could walk all the way up to now. So tinkering with my own vehicles, never really could keep anything stock, and not quite sure why I pursued to work on this stuff daily, but that's what happened. So.
Okay, but you liked working with your hands, you liked getting involved, getting dirty with stuff, and you said you had modified some of your own personal stuff in the past.
Yep.
We're talking like go-karts and mini bikes?
No, pretty much all my pickups. Lift kits, turbos, injectors, transmissions, you name it.
You get after it, okay.
Yep.
All right, good. And then 6 years ago, you got started with Dirty Hooker Diesel, is that right?
Yep.
Okay. When you first come in as a mechanic, did you do any welding or anything in the fabrication room while you were here?
Nope.
No, you kind of skipped over that.
I did.
Okay, how'd you get dragged into the engine building? That's usually something reserved for somebody with like lots of experience and has already fucked up a lot of their own personal stuff.
So pretty much we had a truck come in, needed a motor. I was the tech that got put on it, pulled the motor out. At the time we didn't have an engine builder or anyone. Tony was staying late, Chad was staying late. So got the truck in, got the motor out, got it stripped down, sent it out to machine shop. It came back and I kind of just jumped on it. Tony worked with me a little bit, and that's kind of what started it all.
Okay, so Tony actually worked with you one-on-one, kind of teach you how to build engines.
Yep.
Wow, what was that like?
It was awesome. There was a lot of late nights kind of getting into this, because that was when that was pretty much the only time that he had available was later at night, or so him and I would work quite a bit at night. Whether it be a truck that was in the shop or a customer for online or what, but because at the time we did have pretty much just like stock rebuilds.
Okay.
Just short blocks at the time, but.
Okay, so you guys were doing short blocks and like marketing them and selling them.
Yeah.
And then it kind of started to grow over time, because obviously now there's a pretty wide range of engine build that you can buy from DHD.
It did. So I think everyone can agree 6 years ago, you pretty much had two engine options. It was either stock or you had brace cast Carrillos and a full built motor that you thought made 1,000 horsepower, but it made 650. So it's crazy how far we've come now versus 6 years ago only offering stock engines, or you stock or completely built. That was the only really two options. So now we have pretty much all 3-4 options across the board.
Well, it's funny you say that too, because I remember 6 years ago, that's really the time in the industry where everybody wanted a 1,000 horsepower street truck, right? That was the absolute standard. Everybody wanted big twins and a 1,000 horsepower street truck that you could daily drive and tow your boat with, and then go to the racetrack and run tens in. That's what everybody was going after. And it's actually more plausible today than it was 6 years ago, right? Can you tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about what goes into a 1,000 horsepower build, and how's that different than a smaller build? Like, what do those options look like?
So the biggest things you have to look at is obviously your fuel, your air, your goal with the truck. The number one thing I always ask my customers, what is the goal for this truck? Are you street driving it? Are you drag racing it? Are you sled pulling it? Are you towing your camper with it? What do you want this 1,000 horsepower for?
Yeah.
Majority of them, they're a weekend warrior. They might tow every so often. They just want to have fun with it. Then we kind of lead into, okay, what is your current fuel and air? What might be your future fuel and air. And at that point, we'll spec a build specific to their needs and their wants.
Okay. Can we dive into the details of that? Like, if I were to call you on the phone and tell you, like, hey, I want, just like I said, 1,000 horsepower street build that I could daily drive, I could tow my boat once a year with it, and I could still go and drag race and go as fast as I can. What goes in? What would be some of the specifics that you would put into that engine build?
So that particular build, I would probably recommend our street hooker.
Okay.
So that's going to come with billet mains, Callie's crank, SoCal rods, SoCal camshaft, and a race cast piston.
Okay.
You can choose whether you want just a standard traditional Molly race cast or if you want a fingers oval bowl race cast. But that's for the most part the generic build that will get you to your goal and give you room to improve future-wise if you want to as well.
All right. Well, let's drill down. What's the difference between the race cast and the fingers bowl?
So pretty much bowl design. With the fingers, you'll have a little bit more surface area over top of the wrist pin, which obviously as a Duramax, that's where we all know that they like to crack, is right above the wrist pin.
Okay.
So if you are running, say, a larger injector, if you're keeping your pulse width down, you have EGTs in check, a race cast typically isn't too bad. If you're running big compounds, maybe a little bit higher US, you're seeing some EGTs, a fingers oval bowl might be a better choice.
What is it about the fingers oval bowl that makes it a better choice for that scenario?
I would say just the overall design, having more material over the wrist pin. They typically will.
All right, so Evan, tell me a little bit. You said there's a little bit more surface area on the fingers above the wrist pin, which is where the Duramax pistons generally would be the most likely to crack.
Correct.
So this makes them a little bit more reliable if we know that we're going to have a setup that has higher EGTs and things like that.
Yep.
I don't know anybody who specs their engine to have high EGTs.
Wow.
So when you're specing an engine and somebody says, I want 1,000 horsepower, do you have to drill down and get, well, what's your turbo setup going to be? What fuel system are you going to use? Whose fuel system is going to be in there? Like, do you have to get all of those details out of somebody before building the engine?
You don't necessarily have to, but I feel as if that's what separates us apart from the rest of the industry. We're willing to drill down on those questions and find that information out and spec you a build for your needs and your future goals.
Yeah.
A lot of other people will just sell you whatever they want to sell you, and if it fails, tough shit.
You must have done something wrong. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, I can see that. Now, when I think about engine builds, one of the things I know customers are very interested in is, well, what are lead times, right? If I order it today, it's likely not because I'm very good at planning and being ready for things and a super patient person. Most people who order stuff are like, I want it as fast as possible. If I call in, I talk to you, and I spend, 2 hours on the phone with you speccing out an engine, right? And I say, okay, here's my credit card, let's buy this. What does lead times look like? What's your process from there?
So pretty much once the sale is sold, order fulfillment, they'll pull all the parts. For the most part, we stock a ton of parts right in the house. So all your gaskets, bearings, pistons, cranks, rods, cams, all that stuff we stock. Which is nice because there isn't a whole ton of having to wait and order, and it's already in stock. Our big holdup is machining.
Okay.
So realistically, for that 1,000 horsepower build, I would say you're probably in the 45, maybe 50 day.
Okay.
So not too terrible, I don't think, for a custom build spec to your needs.
Yeah, a month and a half to 2 months to be able to custom build an engine that I've ordered, like, very specifically for my exact truck.
Yep.
Now, is that a fully dressed motor? Is that a long block? What am I looking at for that?
However you would like it.
Okay.
So we sell them just as a short block, we sell them as a complete bottom end, we sell them as a long block, or I can do a complete.
Wow. Okay, yeah, that's an amazing thought to be able to order it and have everything put together, or very close to everything put together, and be able to just come in and drop it in and go.
Correct.
When you're looking at engines, what are some of the biggest highlights and lowlights of building an engine? Like, from your standpoint, from the builder's standpoint, what's your favorite part about building an engine, and what's the worst fucking job when you're building an engine?
So, favorite part would be the challenge. I have yet to see two engines come out 100% identical, meaning measurements, sizes, finishes, stuff like that. So that to me is the most interesting part. The fun part is, you get a block in, you set it up, you measure your clearances, make sure that you're within your spec of the clearance, filing the rings, stuff like that. And then obviously the fun part, putting the nice, cool, shiny pieces together and installing them. And, seeing the customer happy at the end.
Yeah.
That is my favorite part of the job. The shitty part of the job, I would say, is all of the cleaning.
Oh, really?
You don't want stuff dirty.
Yeah.
So, it is a lot of cleaning. So all of our blocks, they get hot tanked and then they get hand washed. So going through hand washing them, it takes time, and then obviously needle scaling and taping off and painting and making them look nice.
Yeah.
That is definitely the shitty part.
That detail. Well, we are actually sitting in the new DHD clean room right now. Yeah. So as guys can see behind us, there's a couple of building tables here. It's a brand new room. It's in a brand new facility. I made a comment earlier. It is surgically lit. Like you could definitely operate on somebody in this room with the amount of light that's in here, and how sterile the environment seems. Is this something that you kind of are like really looking forward to? I don't think an engine's been built in this room yet.
It is not, and this is definitely something I know not just me as a builder, but two of our other guys that are really excited to move into this facility.
Yeah.
Right now, currently with just 2 build stations, you get tied up on one for an O-ring, and it's like, okay, pack everything up, move it off to the side, start on the next one. It's just, 1, it's not efficient, 2, it's not cost effective, and 3, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
So, and a headache to all of us. So being able to have this new facility and go from 2 build stations to 11 build stations, and have the room to grow future-wise is awesome.
Yeah.
We are super excited.
So I noticed that you guys got these WC Fab workbenches back here, and a custom wrap, half wrap all the way around the room. It's well lit, it's clean, it's a sterile environment. It's a little echoey, so if you guys pick up a little bit of echo in today's edit, that's just the room that we're in. We're going to continue to kind of move around the DHD facilities, and you're going to get some different sound, some different background noise and things like that, but we're going to clean it up as best we can. Guys, if you have had your engine built by DHD, I'd like a picture of it in the comments, either on the YouTube channel or, or email it into media@dirtyhookerdiesel.com. And that's the email box I have, and I'll post that on the Facebook page as well. So we'd love to see it from you guys. We'd love to hear back from you guys. Evan, as you look at the engine building program and you think in the future, what are some of your hopes and dreams of where does this go from here? Now you guys are moving into the new facility. You mentioned the potential for growth. Where do you want to see this go down the road?
So ultimately, my end goal, I would like to see every single one of these build stations full. Ideally with our own builder. I don't really want to get to the huge, large scale mass production, thousands a year, because obviously the more you produce, the shittier the product gets. So I want to keep, our good reputation, our good builds, quality builds, at an affordable rate with a good warranty to our customers, but upscale it and make things on the shelf ready to ship. So that's kind of a huge goal for us here, is have builds on the shelf done, ready to ship. So when someone does call and they're broke down, we don't have a lead time.
Right.
So I think that would be a huge advantage. But ultimately, you just kind of get more efficient at what we're already doing, and then look at upsizing from there.
Look at going up from there. Okay, awesome. If there's somebody out there who's watching or who's listening to us and they're thinking that they want to get into building engines, what's some advice that you would share with them up front?
The biggest thing I can share is be a sponge. Absorb as much information as you possibly can. This entire industry, whether it's gas, diesel, marine, anything like that, if you look around, it's all older generation. There's nobody younger coming into this generation.
Yeah.
So, biggest thing I can vouch for is just be a sponge. Absorb all the information that you can, get hands-on. You're gonna screw stuff up. That's life.
Yeah.
So, at least try and work hard.
Find an old guy, take some risks, make some mistakes, learn something new. I like it. I think that's good stuff. Well, Evan, thank you so much for joining the show today. Guys, stick around. We're going to get a quick word from Dirty Hooker Diesel and be back to you with more Hooked on Diesel podcast.
Hello, my name's Tony Burkhardt with Dirty Hooker Diesel. I started my business 23 years ago in a small little shop and got into truck pulling, and from there it's just it's been crazy. We've won over a dozen points championships with a pulling truck, and so then we also got into drag racing, the Duramax diesel, and we've won some remarkable championships with that also. A few things about Dirty Hooker Diesel is we manufacture parts for the everyday truck, your stock truck, and up to competition, truck pulling, drag racing. We create a lot of safety parts, high performance parts. We build motors and transmissions in-house. Here at Dirty Hooker Diesel, we have over 30 employees that do their best to help you with anything that you need for your truck, for the farm, for transportation, and for competition. My crew is more than happy to help anyone that they can. You'll find that we handle a lot of specialty parts, parts you can't find, discontinued parts. We are designing and making and manufacturing more and more parts every day. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and also on our website dirtyhookerdiesel.com. And also, you can give us a call at 989-479-0444.
And we're back. Thank you for joining the show again. If you are watching on YouTube, you should be able to see some pictures, and we're going to roll some clips of all the media we kind of collected while we were out at Dan's Diesel Performance's open house and dyno day and sled pull event. It was a really great day. We started off in the booth. We had a pretty big booth set up in a really nice parking lot. It was a kind of a cool location. So it was in an industrial park, but they seem to have gone around to some of the neighbors of where the dyno is. So the parking lot for the building the dyno was in, that was where there was probably 3 to 4 booths, 3 to 5 booths maybe. Dirty Hooker Diesel having a really nice setup, man. So much apparel. There were so many of you who came out and bought t-shirts and hats and sunglasses and hoodies. It was really overwhelming to see the fandom going on around the DHT booth. I myself was down there, got to hang out in the booth all day, help sell some apparel, help answer some questions, more likely help go find somebody who knows something. But it was a lot of fun. It was cool to see all of the trucks coming in and out as well. So it was a pretty busy day. We had Evan's truck out there. That's the red one, the extended cab long bed dually, and then of course Last Minute Hooker was sitting out there in front of the booth all day. Around, I would say 10 o'clock or so in the morning, maybe a little bit later, maybe 10:30, 11, they started to roll Last Minute Hooker up to the dyno. So first thing is he has to go and fill the water box. It's an air to water intercooler. So they fill it up with ice, then they top it off with water. It's a really cool system to see them put together. Then they put it on the dyno. So they got Tyler running it on the dyno. Now the first time around, they had suggested to Tyler to go ahead and run the buttons for the dyno as well. So you actually have to hold like a handheld unit and hit start and stop, I assume, or whatever the actual commands are. I'm just making this up. It definitely is overwhelming. There was a clip there where they interviewed Tyler after all of the dyno. He made 2 dyno runs. And after he made the passes, he made the comment of, "This is scary." So not only are you on the dyno, this is when you're pushing it the hardest. This is, likely where they have the least amount of experience of operating it themselves. This is where you can actually see it puts a lot on the driver. So in the second run, they handed the controller over to Seth, Tyler's brother, so another Burkhardt boy, and Dan from Dan's Diesel kind of helped point him out. The problem we ran into is communication. So unfortunately, what we have is a situation where they were seated They couldn't clearly communicate with Tyler while he was driving. You got to remember, this thing, there's no front clip on it, right? So like there's nothing around the engine. There's no bumper. There's no hood. There's nothing on the front of the truck. It's just an exposed engine with 3 giant turbos the size of my head. So nobody wanted to sit right next to the engine. Rightfully so. Whenever we see fires start, they don't start in the middle of the truck. You know what I mean? So we put up this like toolbox and put Seth behind it, and then Dan was behind him. So like they got into a situation where they felt safe. They thought they had a game plan down, but when you're operating a dyno, if it comes on too soon, if it spools up too slowly, there's so many different variables of things that can happen that'll throw you off of your pace of what you're trying to accomplish. And that's kind of what we saw here. So the run with Tyler running it by himself and operating the dyno controller by himself, that run, after looking at the data log, very likely, no reason to believe, based off of just the strict data, down in drive pressure, up in boost, holding full rail, that very easily should have been a 22,000 plus horsepower run. We'll just say that very confidently. They had looked at the last run they got a good dyno record for, which was like 2,300 horsepower. And they found that they had less drive pressure, more boost, and held rail, which they did not in their previous run. So very confident that it made over 2,300 horsepower. Exactly how much, hard to say, right? The second run, the run where Seth was operating it, that one they had more confusion on. So we didn't make as much boost. We didn't get to the same full fuel quantity, things like that, into the actual tune of it. So I would say it's unlikely that one was 2,400 or 2,300 horsepower, but it's still by far the most horsepower of the day. Unfortunately, at a dyno event, nobody cares what your truck made. They care what the dyno read that your truck made. And on both runs, unfortunately, the dyno was not able to get a reading for one reason or another. So that's always disappointing. It's a tough day when you spend all the time to haul the truck down. You got to remember, like, last minute hooker and cheap hooker both get put into a semi trailer and hauled with a toter home. I mean, in that truck, in that rig, there's probably an 8-9 hour drive. So they drive 8 to 9 hours. Then we set up and we work in the sun in the booth selling apparel all day. And then you roll over to go do a dyno run. And like at the end of the day, Tony's not going to take home the prize money for the dyno event he sponsored, right? That doesn't make sense. So like, we're doing this just for exhibition, doing this just because there's a passion for it and there's a love for it. So it's, what can we do to help? What can we do? What can we do to make the event awesome? And if it's show up with a 2,000 horsepower truck, well, that's just how Dirty Hooker Diesel does it. So it was cool to see. It was cool to set up. This is one of those tough situations where, no, we didn't get the dyno number, but man, if you were there and could hear the noise and could feel, like literally feel the air in the room change when that truck starts to spool up, absolutely just awesome. It's just, it's an experience, regardless of what the number was. There's an argument to be made that experience was well worth whatever investment was needed to get it out here. The look on people's faces as you look around and people are just in awe of seeing, this truck, which has earned itself quite a bit of fame. I mean, this is the truck that went to UCC. This is the truck that set records with ODSS. This is the truck that started on fire and was rebuilt overnight. This is the truck that guys have seen on the internet and watched 100 times over and over and over. And now they just want to, like, now it's here. It's here. It's 25 feet away from you. People are crowding up by the back of the dyno, which is not a place you ever want to be. So just so you know, if you ever see a dyno running, don't stand behind the tires. If God forbid anything comes off of that, it will hurt. It will be flying at 100, 200 miles an hour. It is extremely dangerous. So don't ever stand behind the dyno. But I do understand that desire to want to see it. That desire to want to get up right close to it and touch it. That's the other thing I would say. Hey guys, if you're at a truck show, do yourself a favor, do other truck owners a favor, don't touch anybody's truck. Don't touch anybody's truck without asking them. It's kind of like their wife, keep your hands off my wife and my truck. I think that's pretty solid words of advice to live by. These things, nobody broke it, nobody scratched it, it's no problem, nothing happened. I'm just an old fuddy-duddy when it comes to this of like, man, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and money went into this. If I'm going to show up with it, the least you can do is respect it by just respecting it, right? Take your time. Let me touch my truck, and I'll let you know if I need help with it. I think that's pretty solid. Now, I will say that there's some other undercover people in this operation, people that you wouldn't normally notice. So we talk about Dan's diesel performance. Number one, Ty over there, the GM. I'm not sure of his official title. He absolutely ran a phenomenal project and program there. Very, very impressed with how he was able to put everything together, organize everything, multiple locations. They built a brand new sled pull track, rebuilt an old sled pull track, but it looked brand new. Parking and people and food trucks, and there's a million things going on. But he had the right amount of staff there to handle it all. Had a great crew of team around Dan's being able to put this together. Operating the dyno is always a scary thing. Getting guys in there to strap something down, especially strap something down that can make 2,000 horsepower, 2,000 plus horsepower. Those guys jumped on it with no problem. They dove right in. They asked questions. They followed directions. It was very impressive to see them work smoothly as a unit. And then behind the scenes on some of the DHD stuff, somebody I got to meet for the first time, so I've always been a big fan of Exergy Performance. I think if anybody's ever met me and talked about fuel systems, high pressure fuel systems, you've heard me reference Exergy Performance. So it's really cool to see Exergy out there in their support and be able to send down Jeff, who is a really cool engineer, handles the tuning and engineering of high-end standalone units. That's probably the best way to describe him. So he was the one who was able to go into the data logs after all those dyno runs and look at them and say, oh, okay, this is I know we have less drive pressure, more boost, so a better boost to drive ratio. And then he was the one to say, hey, I looked at the data logs. We're holding full rail pressure. There's no pump issues, things like that. So there's quite a bit to be said for the guys that you don't normally notice that are out there. I think a lot of people are going to know Tony. They're definitely going to know Tyler. Hey, if you're around the industry enough and you're close enough to DHD, you might even know Seth. But to get to meet Jeff from Exergy was really, really cool. I want to give him a big shout out. He was phenomenal support staff. Great to jump in and help. Talk about a guy pushing through some struggles. He even ran into like his whole laptop, I don't know, crashed out the morning of. Dude jumped in his car, drove, an hour and a half or whatever to go get it and come back, go get a new one, come back and get set up and get going. So it was really, really cool to see. Sled pulls. So that was the other half of the day. So dyno probably wrapped up around noon-ish. Noon to 1. It's hard to keep track of time. That was fine at all. That was great. Then the sled pulls were going to start at 4. Man, sled pulls are tough. I've never been to a sled pull that started on time, number one. Number two, I would say it's very, very common that when somebody is setting up a track to run on the first time of the year, it can be tough. Especially to time it correctly to where not only is everything set up for the fans and the stands and, you have to mind your P's and Q's on all of that, right? Because there's rules around, cement blocks and how far away you are and, properly marked things and yada, yada. There's all sorts of rules you got to follow. But then they're resurfacing this, right? So they're cutting dirt and they're moving dirt, they're packing it down and they're packing it down and they water it and then they pack it down and then they water it and then they pack it down and then they go out and they put the sled on it and the sled sinks. So at 4 o'clock, it probably started more around 6. I'd say it's probably a more accurate time that it kicked off. When we got out to the track, it was late, man. It was fully dark, so it was cool that Dan's went all out for this. They rented lights and generators and like they lit the track up really nicely. But man, because it was so late, it also got really cold. we ran into some technical difficulties with some of the trucks that we had brought down. So Seth brought down his multicolored scrapyard special LBZ. Evan was down with his monster, and then they rolled Cheap Hooker off the truck to go and run. Evan had some problems with the line. We're going to get him back on the show here in the future to talk a little bit about those problems and give us some more details. Seth, I did not catch Seth's pass. I'll just be dead honest with you. So I was looking around for it, looking through some of the footage. I couldn't find a really clean take of what had happened. So we'll have to follow up with Seth to find out what happened to his truck. And then Tony with Cheap Hooker, a lot of spool up, a lot of noise, big pull. Made a solid run through it. It was so late at night, I honestly could not tell you who was the leader in that group. So we're going to get some more details from the guys next week, get some updates on the show. There is a really, really cool clip of Tony's truck pulling. So if you guys want to see that, jump onto YouTube, watch the YouTube version of this. Otherwise, we'll also have some clips out there floating around on social media here in the near future. Guys, for today, this has been Paul Wilson with the Hooked on Diesel podcast, powered by Dirty Hooker Diesel. Please visit dirtyhookerdiesel.com and make some purchases. Thanks for listening.